Well, greetings. I'm going to call a meeting to order. I'm going to start with a couple of announcements, and then we'll do the approval of the minutes. And then we have some the attending veterinarian's report, executive secretary's report, protocol review, and then one final announcement, and we will be done. So the first announcement I have is that I went to an advanced Iacuc meeting just, I guess it was last week, I don't know. Time moves so quickly. The beginning of December. And one of the focuses of the meeting was the new pain and distress report that has just been released. Actually, was just released the morning of the meeting, and the ILAR has put together a group in there. One group was looking at pain, the other group was looking at distress. So I thought what I would do just for a start is give everybody a copy. So you have in your packet a copy of the executive summary of the distress report. So just to point out that, interestingly enough, I think they spent a couple years working on this, and the best definition of distress was very hard to come by, and it essentially boils down to you know it when you see it, because it's just they went through all the physiological basis and all the things around distress, and then discussed the fact that the borderline between stress and distress is a challenging delineate. So just for starters, I'll pick out more to tell you as we go along through the year, but I thought you'd like to see the report. And you can read, there's at the back of this is just the executive summary, and you can see the URL I think is on here. And you can actually read the whole report online if you wish, or else you can order a copy of it. I don't think they're quite out yet. But then there are also some recommendations at the end, 1 through 7. A lot of it is that we need more research, or at least part of it is we need more research on what actually is distress. There also was a discussion of how I think encouraging us all to look at death as an endpoint studies and really be examining those very carefully as we go along, so we can also discuss that further. So that's one thing that's in your packet. Hopefully you'll have a chance to read that. And then the next thing is you have we asked for at our last meeting some sorry. Pager going. Okay, so we asked for at our last meeting an explanation of the abbreviations or the codes that were used in the parts of the primates, in the primate center. So you have in your 2 pages of, one is the, I guess actually just
These
one.
are
just one page. One page, the environmental enrichment abbreviation. So that's in everybody's packet. And next item on the agenda then is the minutes of our last meeting.
Did you want to tell them that this was here because the committee had requested that?
Oh, for the animal. Okay, that's what I was confused about. So there's also a status of animal A06010. I'll come back to that at the end of the meeting and see if anyone has any questions about that. You can have a look at it.
Committee members had requested environmental enrichment information.
The note in the animal's record. Mm-hmm. So the next item is, if I could put my hands on it, here are the minutes of the meeting which were emailed to you. Do we also have a copy of them, or are they just, yes?
And they're the corrected ones with the typos corrected that you caught.
Okay, so there were a number of typos in the ones that were that were emailed out, so I sent those all to Debs. They're all fixed. There was nothing substantive. They were just words that got twisted around. So I'd be willing to entertain a motion to approve the minutes as distributed.
I have a comment on
Sure.
the one thing under the minutes for under the guidelines for non-human primate neuroscience studies. My dissenting opinion wasn't included in that. I think it was important enough to include that. Just that I felt that pre-approval of the 2 surgeries, in my opinion, would impede the function of Iacuc monitoring the surgery. So.
All right.
Okay. Yeah.
So your opinion
In the
discussion that, yes.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's great.
So we can add that.
Anybody else got any other additions or corrections?
Oh, and Pam had noted that under members absent, she shouldn't really be listed there because, she's an alternate for Lynn, and Lynn was at
Okay,
the
so
meetings, and we haven't been listing absent alternates. So,
But when Lynn is absent, she says is absent, but then Pam would be listed as being present in that case, I assume. Or not.
yeah,
Just
and we
clarify.
could, if we wanna make it really crystal clear, when an alternate is listed as present, we could always put alternate in parentheses or something if we wanna, I don't know, we can think about how to make that clear or whether it matters.
Well, clarity's never a bad thing. Anything else? Okay, I'd be glad to entertain that a motion to approve the minutes as revised.
I so moved.
Second? Any further comments? All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Okay. 2 abstentions. So you don't have to abstain if you're not there, is that right? Or?
You don't have to, but you
Can, that's fine. Okay, thank you. So the next item on the agenda, if I quit losing everything in my paper here, is the attending veterinarians report. Dr. Brad.
Okay, on my report this month, I have two protocols that we're monitoring. The first, the RBOBI protocol, which we discussed pretty extensively at the last meeting. This protocol studies potential therapeutic treatments for burn patients using a mouse model. At the last meeting, the Iacuc voted to send a letter of reprimand to the PI of this project due to protocol noncompliances and issues related to veterinary monitoring. The response to that letter is in our packet. I just, and I don't know, Nona, did you want to say anything about that response? Or?
Yeah, I was just gonna mention as part of my report, but it doesn't matter since it crosses over that, Dr. Arbarabi certainly responded to everything according to the way we requested. And the one thing that's not in the packet that Susanna received and brought with her today is that we did also receive a letter from the chair of the department, because if you may recall that the committee had requested that the chair consider assigning a mentor to help make sure his research is going well and correctly and so on, and they did do that. So, just to know that the chair did respond and took the suggestion.
So, from my observations, the PI has been. Oh, I'm trying to answer his page. The PI has demonstrated more involvement and oversight on his personnel, and he's been very responsive to my contacts. 3 experiments, individual experiments, have been performed using the new anesthetic regimen that was approved. And the experimental aspects of the protocol are working well. They are doing what they describe in this letter, which is have a written protocol as to how this should proceed, posted for review, as well as calculating everything ahead of time and drawing them up, and all those little procedures that make things go better. So from my point of view, everything is proceeding well. FETS 232608, animal MO 2193 had a procedure approved at the October Iacuc meeting, which was the administration of tetrodotoxin around a nerve cuff in the right axilla in order to create a temporary impairment of arm movement. We had asked that the veterinarians at the primate center monitor this protocol, and they reported to me that there were no observed complications, and the animal developed no clinical evidence of deficits. On November 26th, the study was completed. The animal was on ice. I did not have a chance to contact Dr. Fett, so I don't know the experimental outcome at all. All I can comment on is the clinical.
There should have been a clinical outcome if it had worked, though.
So there was no obvious paralysis.
So maybe this, this dose did.
Oh, yeah, it was paralyzed.
Oh, it was, okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's not what.
It couldn't move its arm. It didn't move its arm.
That's not what was reported to me, Steve. So maybe you were there. I wasn't there. I just know what I was told. So I don't know how the research came out, I have to tell you.
It achieved the goals they were looking for.
Did they? Good.
That's good to hear.
Good.
My concern on it was when an animal has an arm that's denervated, the potential for them to cause injury to that.
Sure.
Right.
That didn't occur.
But there was a paralysis. So we need to get,
I'll need to get that straightened out.
yeah. Sure. Okay,
And that's it. That's all I got.
all right, thank you. Dr. Phillips?
For that, but I got paid and I have to leave.
Well, we still have
Still have enough people.
still have a quorum, so
Okay.
we're sorry you have to leave, but
See you next time.
see you next
Bye.
time, right.
So are we on to my
Yes,
report?
executive session
Okay.
report, yep.
So, in terms of packets since the last meeting, we had 3 packets and we had 1 electronic item that we sent out to everybody. And since the last meeting in November, and what we've reviewed since then are 11 new protocols. We had 17 renewals. 13 of those were 3 renewals with complete forms, and 3 of the renewals were annual renewals with some morbidity or mortality reported, and the 4th was an annual renewal that had included changes as part of the renewal. There were also separately 95 significant and minor changes to protocols. And as usual, we've completed a lot of those, and then some things are always still pending for final EH&S or whatever it might be. We're really, just as an aside, we're really carefully making sure that procedure rooms, if we're checking, we're doing extra steps to check to make sure that they are in our master site visit list and that kind of thing, and trying to preview rooms when they are new and so on. I was going to give you an update on the non-compliances I reported previously, and so basically Thea and I have already given you now the one for Dr. Arbabi, and we also had sent letters to Dr. Essington. That was the fish study with the albino fish, and Dr. Price, who's Chief of Veterinary Services, for the one that involved basically an operating procedure error in using an anesthetic that needed to have a change made to it. And we did also receive letters exactly as we had requested from both of them, and I think that they fulfilled all the obligations that we asked of them. So we can now do the final reports to OLA, because they've had verbal reports on those but not final reports on them. And the letters from Dr. Price and Dr. Essington are in the packet if you were to want to look at those more specifically. I do have another non-compliance to report to you today. During the semi-annual Iacuc site visit, the visitors found that Dr. Lai was not certain of the euthanasia method that was approved in his Iacuc protocol. And in looking into the situation, it was found that the protocol was approved for euthanasia of rats by anesthesia and terminal perfusion. And what happened was, during the course of the study, when he no longer needed histology, he stopped using that method because he didn't really need that method anymore, but he wasn't thinking about the fact that he needed to send in the new method, which was CO2 followed by secondary cervical dislocation. And so we've had discussions with him, and he understands fully the situation about that and what he should have done. And he hasn't submitted that yet because he doesn't have any rat studies coming up immediately, but he is going to submit that and get it approved and all of that before he does any more rats, because he does not need to do the perfusion. Are these little rats? I did check the protocol. Yes, they are eligible for cervical dislocation as a secondary method. There were 12 rats euthanized by the incorrect method. This does not involve public health service funds. OLA has received a verbal report, and that will, of course, be followed by a final report after we decide what we want to do. and so on. So that's the extent of the situation. Now we have implemented our post-approval monitoring program. So I guess I can slide that in at this point and let you know that we have, and our compliance advisors are out there meeting with PIs on a daily basis. We're going to be trying to meet with researchers twice a year, and so, you know, whenever something like this happens, we, you know, bump that up on their calendar or whatever we might need to do to get them involved to have so that they can help the PI and go through their protocol with them and just make sure that it's all squared away and so on. In this particular case, Dr. Lai will be coming up on needing a 3-year renewal really soon also, and so he has also made a firm commitment to make sure he's got everything in there.
So we need to take some sort of action.
So we should take some sort of action.
All right, what would you like? Letter of counsel?
Usually in a case like this, we would do the letter of counsel. There's not been any prior non-compliances. No animals suffered or had any problems or anything like that as a result of using the wrong euthanasia method.
Would you like to make that motion?
I'd just make a motion that we send Dr. Lai a letter of counsel and reiterate to him the importance of making sure he is fully aware of what's in the protocol and is following those procedures. And if we want, we can ask him to reply back to make that assurance.
Yeah, we should have that.
And of course, we always copy department chair. And I don't remember what department he's in, so I don't remember but if it's School of Medicine, it will also automatically be copied to the Director of Compliance.
Bioengineering.
Yeah, I don't think it's, yeah, I'll check.
All right, is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. Are there any additions or corrections or comments?
Have there been any previous issues with his protocol?
No. He usually knows what's in his protocol, 'cause his protocols are usually pretty straightforward and the only other,
Right.
oh, sorry.
We need to vote.
We need to vote.
About a vote.
All right, all those
Moving on.
All those in favor indicate of sending a letter of
No,
counsel?
well-
No, ballot.
Oh, gosh, I must be loud. Just all that sugar. Well, it's a pencil, but it'll work. So you could just call it Li. It's L-I, right?
L-A-I.
Protocol number.
Oh, you know, I didn't put the protocol number down on there. He
Sorry,
only
you
has
only
one.
have one vote right now, so.
And he only has one
Yeah.
protocol, so I didn't even think to put the number on it.
See, one more step. Okay. All right.
Okay, sorry about that, jumping the gun. I just have one more item to let you know about. I did receive a phone call, which was a concern to the Iacuc, and the phone call was from an individual in Oregon who called and wanted to talk to me about a mailing that she had received from PETA regarding a monkey named Patrick. And what she was looking for, we had a good conversation, and she wanted to know if everything in the letter was correct and factual. And I didn't have a copy of it, and but from her description, it sounded like it was the same animal that there had been editorial comments in the newspaper about. I can't remember if it was Times or PI. And so what I told her was that, you know, we had tried to look at that before, but we had not been able to find a monkey named Patrick that we were sure was the monkey that was mentioned in this other article, because we couldn't tell that everything matched up exactly, and so we had not been able to look into it further. And well, it turns out that the document she had the animal number in it. So she faxed that to me, and I've passed it on to Primate Center, and they will be looking at exactly what it states in the letter and what the situation was or wasn't or whatever with that animal. So they're going to look into that and get back to me. And I told the caller who, was willing to identify herself and everything. She didn't even hesitate. And I will call her back and let her know what the results are when we get them, and I will report those to you as well. So it's pretty straightforward request, actually.
Great. That's it?
And that's it.
So the next item on our agenda is the Protocol 312604 Schwartz.
I am.
Ah, thanks, Doug.
Okay, there's nothing particularly unusual about this protocol. A full committee review has been called because the PI needs an early approval so he can supply just-in-time information for a grant that's been selected for funding. So we're essentially doing the PI a favor, and since we're not jammed with lots of protocols today, I thought we may speed things up a little bit by doing this. The project is titled Pet Proliferation Tracers. The goal of the project is to quantify the effects of key cellular enzymes and transporters on nucleoside tracer uptake and retention, and determine how these alterations affect the ability of specific radio-labeled tracers to detect different levels of tumor cell proliferation both before and after 48 hours, and before and 48 hours after treatment with either radiation or 5-fluorouracil. Mice will be used. Tumors are 5 isogenic variants of a lung adenocarcinoma line that's been well characterized, A549, and so will be administered by SC injection into both hind legs. In other words, 2 different variants, 1 into each leg of each animal. The doses of radiation in 5FU are chosen so that they induce tumor toxicity while remaining tolerable for the mice. Radiation in 5FU stop tumor cells in different phases of the cell cycle, which is why they need to do both. 3 radio-labeled tracers will be used, and uptake and retention will be measured by dissection and counting of radioactivity in the tumors or by dynamic PET imaging. Tracers will be administered by lateral tail vein injection under anesthesia, and animals will be euthanized at 90 minutes. Terminal surgery for injection into the femoral vein is included as a backup in case the tail vein injection fails. The in vivo phase of the study will follow a large amount of preliminary in vitro work. So in other words, they're not starting out right here. They've done a lot of in vitro work with non-animal models, and they're using the best of the techniques that they've come up with for the animal stuff. The in vivo techniques are necessary because 2-dimensional cultures cannot fully predict what happens in a 3-dimensional tumor. In vivo, where tracer delivery can vary and response to treatments can be very different. We have reviewed this. This was actually sent to the committee this past week, so it arrived in your packets, and so you may have been able to take a look at it. And we do have a few more questions on it that arrived today, other than the ones that I have left, and so I'll go over the ones that we had left that I sent out an email to everybody about, as well as the new ones. And there was a question about whether these tumors would be injected by IP injection. At one point it said that, and that was an error. There is no IP injection. It is all, as it says, 1 tumor on each side. An animal housing location needs to be determined before we can approve the protocol. And where I'm going with this is that I would like to be a designated reviewer after we're done here, unless there are other more substantive issues that are raised by the committee. Iacuc site visits to 2 rooms for irradiation preparation and irradiation have tentatively been scheduled, but they need to be conducted before we can approve the protocol. And the way that it was presented, the animal numbers are a bit confusing, and I've given a little bit of an illustration below of how he arrived at 4 independent measurements for each tumor, given 5 tumors with 1 to each of 2 legs per animal. It was, and if you see that in the grid that I've gotten there, they're all combinations of 5 tumors in 2 legs at a time. And if you do that, that turns out that there's 4 separate animals that get tumor A, 4 separate animals that get tumor B, and so on for each one of them. That's where the 4 comes from. And I think if it is fairly obvious after that how the animal numbers were determined if you just read it, except for something that I'm going to present in a minute. The other things are that there are holds on this for both occupational health and environmental health and safety, which we will watch for. And for tumor monitoring, he specified that he was going to look at the body weights of the animals, but he didn't really say what, percentage of body weight. And so I recommended to him that he take a look at the Iacuc recommendations for permissible body weight loss, and so he's going to do that.
And tumor size, which is really more.
Yeah, and I think he mentioned the tumor size, didn't he?
Did he? And I didn't. I could have looked past it. That's quite possible.
That was.
He said that if they caused
100.
It was certainly a part of the grant, and
Okay.
Yeah.
that's.
That's really probably the more critical.
Gets me
Right.
is when I'm reading both.
Yeah, it's hard to remember which
It was
is in what
100
place.
cubic millimeters.
Which is fine.
Yep, that's there.
Yeah.
4.
And he said he.
Yeah, it's 100 cubic millimeters is in here.
Uh-huh.
So it's
So that's definitely
mil-
small. That's smaller
That's
than the
small.
one.
3.16
Yep.
Usually we say-
millimeters on a side or something if it were cube.
Right.
Fairly small.
So do you want some other comments that?
Yes. First of all, why don't you wait just a second, and I will present some others that arrived in the mail from one of our members. Somebody said, surely there must have been some progress in the animal studies of the last 3 years, because all he mentioned there was that his grant has been recommended for funding. And in fact, there has not been any progress because his grant hasn't been funded for that. He's done some in vitro work. They've used 0 animals, so there really is no progress. Then it said, you justify using 60 mice per arm times 2 arms for 120 mice, but then you say you want 50 mice per arm times 3 arms. Please clarify. And I think that was clear to me anyway in the part where he's looking at tumor take, that he was essentially dividing 120 by the tumor take ratio of 0.8 to come up with the 150.
Right.
But then also the 150 is not what he's requesting. The 150 was for the whole experiment, but the experiment is going to take more than the 3-year protocol to do that. And so he was scaling back the numbers from, he's justifying all of the numbers for the whole experiment, and what he's requesting is just the numbers that he would be able to use in the first 3 years. Let's see. There was a question about how long will it? Please provide better justification of why you want to inject both flanks of each mouse. And he says, placing tumors in both flanks of the animal reduces the number of animals we will need in 2 ways. First is that we need only half the number of mice if there are 2 tumors in each mouse. Secondly, this approach should reduce inter-animal variability and thereby increase our statistical power, hence also helping keep our mouse numbers down. Finally, we are able to partially shield the mice and deliver radiation to just one of the tumors on each mouse. This also provides a mechanism to reduce inter-animal variability while reducing any radiation-induced normal tissue effects. So, it's up to me as to whether that's a sufficient justification or not. The other question, how long will it take for the tumor to reach 100 cubic millimeters? And he says previous studies suggest it'll need 3 to 4 weeks. I'm not sure what we're supposed to do with that information, but there it is. How often will you weigh the animals during monitoring? And his response is weekly. So those are the questions.
I didn't ask that particular question, but a lot of times, I mean, and sometimes we've had protocols before where somebody maybe is proposing to monitor less frequently than our tumor policy mentions, and it turns out it's an extremely slow-growing tumor. So it's sometimes it's helpful to know how fast-growing the tumors are.
So is weekly sufficient?
For weights, yeah.
So I had a couple.
I had two things. On page 4, he talks about taking blood samples. He says 2 to 4 blood samples per mouse at 15, 30, 60, and 90 minutes from the tail vein.
Sorry, where are you?
On each here.
Page 4.
Oh, I see.
PRF
Okay.
number.
Yeah.
It's second full
C.
paragraph.
Yeah. Okay.
But then on page PRF, well then in
Yeah.
question 11, 11E, talks about 50, 30, and 60.
So which is it?
Yeah, which is it? And then
Sure.
the other concern I had was number 12. He's got Pentabarb to anesthetize, and he's got his duration of 90 minutes, which is a little long for a dose of Pentabarb. He needs to talk about what he's going to do to reduce.
Well, actually, I'd wonder why he can't use a gas.
He has the gas
both listed.
He has both listed. But this, especially this dose of Pentabarb, that was my other comment. I would prefer that he gave us a dose range, not an exact dose. And he seems to have them almost switched. I would have used the lower dose for the lower thing, and the higher. I don't get why he chose these particular doses, and he would be better off with the dose range, and then explain the duration issue. And we'd be very happy with the dose range of 35 to 50 mg per kg. That would be
Right.
For
fine.
both items, right?
For both items.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, what's
But he
What's
has to have
gonna-
a plan.
and what's going to determine his choice of whether he uses ISO or Pentabarb? Because it seems like that might, I don't know. But anyway, if he's using Pentabarb, it won't last 90 minutes. So.
I'll get a clarification on that. I think that
He may have been intended to put that with maybe all and then switch it to ISO. And
Well, he does sort of talk about that, actually. He talks about if the Pentabarb's not good enough, he'll move him over to ISO. But I don't know. It seems a little wishy-washy to me.
okay. Well,
Well, the thing that I would point out is that that is gonna affect, that those drugs have different circulatory effects.
Right.
So it's gonna affect his research as to which drug he's using when. And if he doesn't do them all the same, then the circulatory effects, and I don't understand his research well enough to know, but he would need to know that those circulatory effects aren't gonna matter. Because he is giving his tracers IV, et cetera. So if he thinks about that, we'd appreciate it.
okay. Okay, so I'll ask him to have a plan for that.
would you like to see the plan?
Maybe Ida could see his plan.
Sure.
Because you want this approved by tomorrow, right?
No, it's not going to happen by tomorrow. This is not that urgent.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
It's going to take a while to get the rooms inspected anyway. Okay, so I guess I would recommend then to turn this over to me as a designated reviewer for these issues that I've mentioned that are still outstanding issues, and when we've cleaned up all of those things, to go ahead and approve the protocol.
And who was the backup, since we didn't? Okay.
Who else?
Cindy as a backup. All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion, questions, comments, further discussion, questions, and comments? All right, then we should go ahead and vote.
So this is
Number is,
Oh, it's on here.
right.
Yes, I got it.
312604.
The previous one, sending by a letter of council was unanimous.
Okay. All right, so the last thing on our agenda is an announcement, and that is that I received a request, an anonymous request for the committee to investigate an issue. This issue is related to a chapter that was published in a book. The book was Developments in Primatology, Progress and Prospects, and it's a chapter entitled, Is it Nutrients or Nurturing? Comparison of the Growth and Development of Mother-Reared and Laboratory-Reared Macaque Infants. It was authored by Deborah Durham and Laura Newell Morris. So the request that we got wanted us to ask the committee to investigate whether or not there was approval for the research that was published. This research was published in this chapter in the year 2006. And the question is, was there a protocol approved for this piece of work? So Dr. Brad has agreed to work with me on a subcommittee. If anybody else would like to be a member of that subcommittee, if you would let me just send me an email, and we'll set up a meeting time. There were also some other issues raised in this anonymous request that really are not under the purview of the Animal Care Committee. So I actually happened for another reason to be talking to the new chair of Arts and Sciences, Dr. Anna Marie Iacuc. So I'm going to forward the questions and all the literature that was sent in this anonymous request to actually a designee and let Arts and Sciences decide how they wish to handle the rest of the issues that were raised, since this work comes from the Department of Anthropology. So I will go ahead and send that to them, and we will just deal with the issue of whether or not there was approval for this published piece of research. So do let me know if you'd like to be a member of the subcommittee. And with that,
And the last vote was unanimous also,
unanimous.
10 in favor.
Okay. Is there any other comments or questions anyone has? Well, have a pleasant next week or two, and meeting's adjourned.
You got to tell Lynn that you were here till 5.
I will.
Yes.
Yeah. Always report that to each other.
Yeah, yeah. And then,
So were there questions or comments?
I think Claudine would like to say
Yes,
something.
as usual, I always like to say something to you, and this is the end of the year. And at least I'm glad that you are there and looking at things rather carefully. Today, what I heard from Dr. Phillips about checking on Patrick and the truth to that interests me highly. I did read a report on this, and I'll be glad when you come back and tell us if that's true or not, because I keep calling myself a watchdog, but you are the watchdogs too, so we are all in this together, and I still want to wish you, well, Dr. Cunningham and Phillips, Joyeux Noël and Bonne Heureuse Année still, because, and all of you too, but I'm glad you're there, because without you it probably would be a lot worse for those little critters. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Bonne heureuse année to you too.
Merci. Bonne Heureuse Année, that's
I believe that was it.
happy and New Year.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I have to teach you. I have to teach